In the dead of night, when the moon is high and ill winds blow, and the banshees cry and the moonlight casts an unearthly glow, arise, my love, with tales of woe.
Good evening. It is 12 midnight, the paranormal hour. Welcome to Ghost to Ghost. I'm your host, Chief Lawson. Ghost to Ghost is a podcast to discuss all paranormal and parapsychology subjects. You can find Ghost to Ghost on all major formats, so tell your friends, tell your family. Come listen to Ghost to Ghost. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd like to welcome you back to Ghost to Ghost. Tonight, we're going to talk about part 2 of Phantom Racers and Phantom Racetracks. So we hope you enjoy this. Tonight's guest is Jennifer Verne, research manager and podcast producer.
Good evening.
And Heather Lawson, case manager and podcast director.
Hello.
So as we begin part 2, I hope you've all enjoyed part 1. If you haven't, please go back and pick that up. I think you'll really enjoy that. So let us begin.
So to pick back up with our Indy 500, we're going to go into the Andretti curse a little bit. And anybody in Indianapolis knows the name Andretti. And probably one of the most well-known sayings in my family, at any rate, is, "And Andretti is slowing down." That was always a funny thing.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Poor old Mario.
Mario Andretti was my sister's favorite driver. And
mine as well.
Every time his car would start to slow down, she would get so upset. And then, when Michael started racing, and Michael always started with engine trouble. So that was always a fun saying in our house. So the Andretti curse, sometimes referred to as Andretti luck, is a folk belief in a string of bad luck with the Andretti racing family has experienced in their efforts to win the Indianapolis 500. Mario Andretti has won it one time in 1969. And he retired in 1994 without winning again. The misfortunes, like I said, have extended to his family. His sons Michael and Jeff, and then nephew John. John Andretti is extremely admired within the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and racing history. And of course, we lost him recently, a couple years ago, to the colon cancer. And of course, grandson Marco, he's still racing today. They've got a total of 75 starts between them.
Gosh.
Yes.
He's still my favorite driver. I always
Mario
enjoy
Andretti is, he's the epitome of a race driver. He is friendly and super amazing. And of course, he still does the racing with the two-seater at the 500.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
I didn't know he did that.
So you can pay for an experience to get in a race car. Mm-hmm. And he is your driver.
Oh,
wow.
That's going to be
Now, I don't know if
fun.
he's still doing it right now, but as of last year, the year before, he was still the race car driver.
Wow.
You would sit in the second seat.
For the Indy experience?
For the Indy experience, he would take you around the track in that car. And boy, oh boy, would that be something I would love to do.
Oh, yeah.
So according to Robin Miller, and if you're listening in Indianapolis, you know who Robin Miller is. He needs no introduction. The curse started in 1970 when Mario Andretti, Andrew Granatelli, and Clint Brower were involved in a feud over the team. Partners Granatelli and Brower split, and Andretti sided with Granatelli. Brower's wife, Kay, supposedly cast a hex upon them, promising never would an Andretti ever again win the Indianapolis 500.
Wow. One angry lady.
One never mess with a woman, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether the hex is true or not, whether the story is true or not, there's something going on.
Wow, yeah.
So the success has not completely eluded the Andretti family. Michael Andretti broke Kay Bauer's spell, having won the Indianapolis 5 times.
Yep, so there you go.
So even though Kay may have cursed the family, success has not completely eluded the Andretti family. Michael and Marco have won races throughout the IndyCar series.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's Mario, as I said, as a kid, he was the neatest guy in the world. He was always friendly to us. He took time, But that would be neat. I mean, I really would like to get a chance to talk with him. I don't know what his age is now. I know he's a lot older than I am, but I don't know exactly where that's at. But at least the family won somewhere else on the circuit.
Right.
So,
but Indianapolis is still close to their heart, as with many racers, because up by where I live, all of the big racers have their auto sports shops up there, and Andretti Racing is right up there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I pass it every day on my way to work.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's take a bit of a turn. Let's talk about some other haunted cars and haunted drivers. We've kind of been talking about racetracks in general. We've hit on a little bit of this, but we talked earlier at the beginning of this episode 1. We talked about the Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo episode of the Grand Prix racer, Ghost Racer, Phantom Racer. I'd like to bring another one in that's pretty good, and this was the 67 Speed Racer, and it featured the GRX Death Engine. First appearance was in 67. The GRX appears in a 2-part episode called The Fastest Car on the Earth. And I remember watching this as a kid. Now, of course, I want to point out clearly I did not watch this in 67. I was born in 66. I watched it in the 70s. But anyway, I just want to point that out. It is an extremely powerful and dangerous racing engine designed and built by an automotive genius named Ben Cranham. It could reach velocity so high that it negatively affected the driver's sense of coordination. 10 years prior to the events of the series, it took the lives of 5 test drivers, with Cranham himself being one of them. The GRX had gained notoriety from these events among automotive experts, Pops Racer included. 5 years after the crash that killed Cranham, the engine was buried with the body of its creator at Spook Cemetery. Hence that's got to be a great title there, Spook Cemetery. Speed Racer come back in 2008. And the GRX was back, and it was in the version of a T180, and it was brought back. So anyway, I remember watching this episode.
I was going to say, the Speed Racer cartoon sounds familiar, and I think somebody has shown me an episode of that before.
Go Speed Racer.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
go Speed Racer.
Go
Okay.
Speed Racer.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the first Japanese really cartoons,
like anime type,
that came here.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, that came in the 60s. That was one of the first ones they had done. I think the next one came in the 70s. And it was Biotech. And I remember watching Biotech, but it
don't forget Astro Boy.
Well, yeah, I didn't watch it though for some reason. I don't know. I just didn't. I was big into Biotech, but this one struck me somehow or another because the simple fact was when they buried the engine. Of course, they showed the casket of Cranham, but the engine was pulsing like a heartbeat. It was red. It was like it was alive and possessed by all the drivers that had taken.
And you knew immediately.
Oh, yeah. And in the episode, Speed Racer wants to put this engine into his car. Anybody remember what his car was called?
No.
Do you remember?
X-Racer?
X-Racer. And they wanted to put the engine into it. And Pop was really upset and did not want that to happen. But the
and he
location...
was Racer X, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was Racer X. And Racer X got the engine. And it got put into the Racer X engine, which was the big, that was where the car engine came from. But yeah, they buried it on purpose to make sure no one else ever died. So, there's always been, it makes you wonder where that came from, because this is before a lot of this came out. Now, switching engines a little bit.
Well, maybe this could be the source of that legend.
Well, that very well could be.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I could see that as being.
I mean,
so, you know.
James Dean here.
Yeah, and that's probably the most. I remember as a kid having this told to me, and I thought, man, oh man, because I remember my dad telling me about this and reading the newspaper articles. James Dean and his Porsche Spider, named the Little Bastard. In some respects, it's probably the most famous Phantom cars of all. And it was a 550 Spider Porsche. It was named Little Bastard by James Dean. The actor, and he was a race driver. A lot of people didn't realize this. James Dean, that's what he did for a hobby. He was a race driver. The Little Bastard is silver, and his convertible Porsche 550, numbered 130. And the VIN number was 550-0055. The car was supposedly customized by Charles Barris, the king of Hollywood customizations. Now, Barris made the Munsters.
Batmobile.
Yeah, he made the Batmobile that, Adam West and Burt Ward rode around in. He did the Munsters mobiles, both the family vehicle and the casket roadster.
The Dracula.
He did the Dracula, and he did, or Dragula, and then he did the Charlie's Angels van. He did the Monkeys car. He did the Banana Splits car. I mean, this guy was the king of customization. When you went to a World of Wheels, which was very popular when I was young, it was held down at the convention center. I mean, the guys in the high school especially, we'd always go to the World of Wheels when it came in. And when you went to this, it had probably a third of those were cars that Barris had done. Now, he did not do some of the newer ones, but I think the last big Hollywood one he did was the A-Team van. But he did a lot of different vehicles. Now, it was said that he customized it, but he really didn't. He got in an argument with James Dean. Dean was very upset about it, so he had someone. Only thing that Burris did was paint Little Bastard on there and put the numbers on it. He wouldn't let him customize it beyond that point. It kind of made Burris very angry about it. Alec Guinness.
I've seen this interview where he told about meeting Dean.
And they actually grew to be friends. And Alec Guinness warned Dean to never go into the car. He says, please never get in it. If you get in the car, you'll be found dead in it. And that's what Alec Guinness told him. Now, for those who don't know Alec Guinness, that is the original Obi-Wan Kenobi from the original Star Wars, which is now Volume 4, A New Hope. But that is Alec Guinness. But he said, by this time next week, you'll be found dead in a car. The following Friday, his prediction came true. September 30th, 1955, Dean was on the way to a race in Salinas, California with mechanic Rolf, I'm going to pronounce this wrong and tell you Rolf Wutherich.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounded right. Okay. Was in the passenger seat. That was his mechanic. It was a Ford station wagon followed, driven by stuntman and friend Bill Hickam. Now, Bill Hickam was very legendary in the stunt world. He did a lot of stunts back then. He did a lot of stunts for a lot of the TV shows. Hickman had quite a reputation. And he was also the photographer for that day who was going to shoot Dean that weekend. At only 24 years old, James Dean is dead, the headline read. His Little Bastard 550 Spider collided head-on with a Ford Tudor that turned left right in front of him at an intersection. This is where the story gets confused. We know we know the insurance considered it a total loss, the car. It was sold to a salvage company that the insurance company, in turn, through a salvage yard in Burbank, sold the Spider to a Dr. William F. Estridge. Now, this is what gets really weird. First, the insurance company, and I think what happened, they totaled it out. That's what they did. That's what we would call today being totaled out. It was a total loss, and they totaled the car out. So at that point, it was turned over to salvage yard, and this doctor called and said, hey, I need the parts off of that, so would you be willing to sell it to me? And they hooked him up through the salvage yard. So Estridge dismantled the engine and mechanical parts and installed the Porsche 4-cam engine in his Lotus 4 race car chassis. At the Pronoma sports car races on October 21st, 1956, Estridge, driving this car, was involved in a minor shunt with another driver, a Dr. McHenry, driving a car powered by the engine from Dean's car.
Right.
Was killed when his vehicle went out of control and struck a tree in the first race, in which the motor hadn't been used since Dean's mishap until that point. Estridge, interviewed a day after McHenry's fatal crash, said he had loaned the Dean's transmission and several other parts to Henry, including the engine. I don't believe he was using the transmission when he crashed, but he was using the back swing arms which hold the rear end in and the engine. September 30th, 1955, it is not known exactly how Barris knew Estridge, but he was given the Spider's mangled body after Estridge had stripped out the Porsche in 56. Barris announced that he was going to rebuild Little Bastard, but that proved to be a Herculean task as the wrecked chassis had no remaining integral strength. Instead, Barris decided to weld aluminum sheet metal over the the caved-in left front fender and cockpit area. He proceeded to beat out the aluminum panels with a 2x4 to try to stimulate what would appear to be a collision damage. George Barris paid U.S. $2,500 for the wreckage of Little Bastard. Soon after getting it, the Porsche slipped off its trailer and broke a mechanic's leg, and this is where it begins.
Right.
There's a few stories associated with the curse that can be collaborated. For example, a Wire story on March 12, 1959 reported that the Little Bastard, temporarily stored in a garage at 3158 Hamilton Avenue in Fresno, caught fire. Awaiting display, the car was stored awaiting display as a safety exhibit in the coming motorsports and custom automobiles show.
A safety display.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what they used it as.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying, and then it caught on fire.
Well, it gets a little better than that. However, on May 12, 1959, the Fresno Bee reported that the fire occurred on the night of March 11th, and only slight damage occurred to the Spider, without any damage to other cars or property in the garage. So the Spider was the only one that ended up damaged. And so now the way this thing was done, I saw pictures of the display, and I've got them. I think they're in the actual video, the YouTube video, but it's at an angle. It's at like a 15-20 degree angle. They got the car mounted so people walking by can see the inside of the car. For a while, it had James Dean's blood, and they made Barris clean it off because it was thought to be too morbid and disrespectful. But, you know, and they thought, too macabre, and I'm sure there's people wanted parts of it too. Following the strange incident surrounding Little Bastard, Barris thought best to hide the car, but was convinced by the California Highway Patrol to lend the mangle wreck to the Highway Safety Exhibit. So now it becomes part of California Highway Patrol, so the Chips have it. The first exhibit was unsuccessful as the garage that housed the car caught fire and burned to the ground, but the 550 remained virtually untouched by the flame.
Burnt around it.
But all around it. So the next exhibition at a local high school ended up abruptly when the car fell off its display and broke a nearby student's hip.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Yeah, and it's come off that display several times. Barry still had 2 tires from the 550, which were untouched in Dean's accident. Pretty soon after he sold them, both blew out, simultaneously causing the new owner's car to run off the road. It's not known if he died, but we do know he caused an accident. Barris had kept the rest of the car in his possession, and a couple of thieves thought they'd help themselves. One of the thieves' arms were torn open trying to steal the steering wheel, while the other was injured trying to remove blood-stained tartan seat covers that were there, trying to get those off. Later in 1956, Barris loaned out the Little Bastard to Los Angeles chapter of National Safety Council for a local rod and custom car show. The gruesome display was promoted as James Dean's last sports car. And I think this is the one, it's either this one or the next one, that he was told he had to take the blood off the seats because it was too gory. During 1957-59, the exhibit was touring in various rod and custom shows, movie theaters, bowling alleys, and highway safety displays throughout California. Legend also holds that the Little Bastard mysteriously disappeared in 1960. According to Barris, the Spider was returning from a traffic safety display and exhibit in Florida in a sealed truck. Now, this part I remember as a kid, having heard this later on in life. I mean, again, I wasn't able to comprehend that in 60. In Barris's book and in many TV interviews, he said the Little Bastard was being shipped back in a sealed boxcar. When the train arrived in Los Angeles, Barris said he signed the manifest and verified the seal was intact, but the boxcar was empty. So, Little Bastard was being transported previous to this to get it to the boxcar, and the truck that was carrying the car lost control, causing the driver to fall out and somehow get crushed by the car after it fell off the back of the trailer. And this was on the way to the train.
Goodness.
Yeah. The 550 fell off 2 more transport trucks while traveling on the freeway. Fortunately, no one was injured, but it had a habit of jumping.
It doesn't like to be carried.
Doesn't like to be displayed, carried, or anything else.
No.
But yeah, so anyway, in 1966, obviously sick of the Porsche by now, the California Highway Patrol sent it back to Barris. However, there again, it mysteriously vanished around. And this is when, in 66, is when it was in the rail car. But when it got there, it was the same seal. Of course, they said a lot of this was done for hype because it was dying out. People weren't coming to see it like it was. You know, James Dean had been gone a while now. His notoriety had kind of faded.
Or there were collectors that were willing to pay big money to have it.
Oh, yes. Barris. Yeah, Barris offered, and during this whole thing, we don't know if Barris made this up or not, but Barris offered $1 million to anyone who could prove that they own the remains of the little bastard. Yeah. No one came forth to claim the prize. In 2005, the Volvo Auto Museum in Chicago posted a U.S. $1 million reward for its purchase. Obviously, an attempt to hopefully find it, and the money may have worked. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Volvo's connection to the cursed James Dean. Yeah, well, it's been interesting all along, but it gets better at this point, we'll say. In 2015, Sean Riley, a 47-year-old man, provided a lead to the Dean's old car. Riley said his father, a carpenter, had taken him to a job as a child where the client wanted a wrecked sports car to be hidden behind a wall. Father and son worked to hide the car. As the two worked, the wrecked car gave Riley a scar on his thumb that he carries to this day. Riley also claims that one of the men who wanted to hide the car was George Barris. The presence of Barris, combined with a mysterious sports car, fueled speculation that Riley had helped to hide James Dean's car. And so the Volvo Auto Museum had Riley take a lie detector test to verify his claims. Riley passed the test. Riley's story was the first real lead to the vehicle, even though Volvo has had $1 million bounty out on the Porsche since 2005. But and nobody came forward until Riley came forward. It was believed to be found in rural Massachusetts. The original and complete transaxle assembly has seen the light of day after being stored in a wooden crate and hidden from the public for 30 years. So in Massachusetts, rural Massachusetts, they found the transaxle. So
I wonder if they've been able to compare any serial numbers or anything to confirm any of that, though.
I don't know. It doesn't really say. It just said stored in a wooden crate and hidden. And that was in a news article. Now, Zach Bagans spent $300. There we go.
Yeah, Zach Bagans makes it into an episode.
Oh, yeah. Zach Bagans spent $382,000 on a car part this weekend. He says it was a real deal. Well, it turns out he bought the transaxle. So Saturday, the star of Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel snapped up the transaxle from James Dean's 1955 Porsche 550 Spider. This is the same Cavallo sports car the Hollywood icon and cult hero was driving when he was killed on September 3rd, 1955. So, Zach Bagans now, and I'm sure it's in the museum, in his museum in Las Vegas.
Right, next to Bela Lugosi's mirror, haunted mirror that isn't even Bela Lugosi's mirror.
Yeah, so, there's always interesting, and that adds more questionable issues to anytime he's involved in some of these. His interest fueled Bagans found the intact transaxle from Dean's death car on a bridgeatrailer.com website. The piece will be displayed promptly at Bagans' The Haunted Museum, likely by September. And this is a couple years old, so I'm sure it's already on there. Side note, Dean was dating Vampira, also known as Mila Numi. She also dated Orson Welles. It was rumored that Miley cursed Dean, which caused his death. The FCC, already in arms about his grotesque jokes on her TV program, decided the rumors were the tip of the iceberg and canceled her show. Outreach of a curse? Who knows? I mean, it certainly makes one wonder. So, and I'm sure there's some other haunted cars we didn't get a chance to even get near or to bring up in this episode. But the Porsche Spider, I remember I've got a picture. It's framed and hung in my man cave for years. And it's the last picture taken by Hickman.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The famous picture at the
gas station. He's got one driving glove off and he's fueling the car. And it happened like an hour before the accident.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting when you look at it and you think about that. I've looked at that picture many times and wondered. But, the thing is, now, the thing about the wall and that, what happened is after they figured out which warehouse this was in, because Riley was very young, and so he wasn't sure which warehouse that this had been stored in. So they took him back and they showed him around. They finally figured this out, where the warehouse is at. And it does look like it has a false wall. And so, but the owner that has it is part of a relation, not to Barris, but to another mogul in the automobile, and they never named who it was, but he refused to allow them to access the wall.
Yeah.
So he thinks, I imagine he thinks he's got the car.
Right.
It's certainly safe for most burglars. It's behind a brick cinder block wall. It's going to take a lot to get through it. But it's now believed that this may be where the car is at, that's hid back in there.
Very interesting.
So, I think, we may see 5 or 10 years from now, we may see it come out because they'll bring it out. But the problem is right now, I mean, if you had somebody like Baggins that wanted to put it, Zach Baggins that wanted to put it in his museum or something like that, you would have value to it. There'd be some collectors that wanted it, but it's still, I don't know, I think they're waiting, hoping, maybe praying that they get a bigger value out of that car. So
quite possible.
Yeah. Well, folks, that kind of wraps it up. If you're in Indy, I got to tell you, you want to catch the race at least once because it's something everybody should see. There's a bucket list. If you have a bucket list, you want this to be one of the items to cross off. So if you're in the Indianapolis area and you can get tickets, go to the Indianapolis 500. It's worth seeing at least one time in your life. So having said that, unfortunately, this concludes our episode, Ghost to Ghost tonight. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We really do. Make sure you catch Volume 1 of Phantom Racers and Phantom Racetracks. This episode was written by myself, and I hope you've enjoyed it well. All right, listeners. Welcome to Ghost Story of the Day. Today's presenter will be Jennifer Verne, our research manager on Spirit.
Today's Ghost Story of the Day: the most evil car in America. A 1964 Dodge 330 came to be known as the most evil car in America. After allegedly killing more than a dozen people, the villainous car was first purchased by a police unit. During the car's career as a police vehicle, 3 officers drove it. Each officer would commit a murder-suicide, where they first murdered their families, then killed themselves. The eerie similarities made people wonder if the car was possessing its drivers. The car's next owner, a Wendy Allen, had a similarly spooky experience with the vehicle. When Wendy drove down the highway, the car would open its doors without anyone touching them and jam its steering wheel, placing passengers in harm's way. When members of a local church heard about the car's reputation, they went out and vandalized the car in an attempt to stop it from being used. The story goes that many of those who vandalized the car ended up being decapitated by an 18-wheel trucker, with one member being struck by lightning. In 2007, a child who supposedly touched the car went on to kill his entire family, much in the same way as the 3 police officers had. After this tragedy, the church members stole the car, chopped it up into small pieces, sending the pieces to multiple junkyards to ensure it was never reassembled. As far as we know, the car has yet to come back. However, there's another story where the woman that owned the car was displeased with the theft and destruction of her beloved vehicle. She went and tracked down enough of the remains to rebuild it. She says it's a fine car, except for when the doors fly open when they're driving on the highway.
Thanks for listening to Ghost. Again, I'm your host, Chief Lawson. You can find Ghost to Ghost on all major formats on the 15th and 30th of the month at midnight. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, maybe have a question or subject you'd like to ask about on air or be used on the show, please email us at ghosttoghost@spiritindiana.com, ghosttoghost@spiritindiana.com. I want to thank my production staff on Spirit, Jennifer Verne, our research manager and our producer, and Heather Lawson, our trainer on Spirit and our podcast director, for helping make these podcasts possible. My chief of staff, Andrew Brooks, for his guidance and help on the scripts, and everyone else involved. Thank you so much. See you next time. Until then, stay safe and remember the truth is out there. Good night. Ghost to Ghost podcast and its contents is the property of Spirit Paranormal Ltd., all rights reserved. We welcome you to download and play the podcast and share with others for personal use. You may not, except with written permission, use or distribute its contents for commercial use. Spirit Indiana Paranormal, covering the Hoosier State since 2002, Indy's oldest parapsychology investigation group. If you're experiencing what you believe to be paranormal issues, reach out to us for help at www.spiritindiana.com or call our hotline at 317-883-9103. Again, that is www.spiritindiana.com or our hotline at 317-883-9103. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself and the ones you love, and be safe out there.